Okay, just want to give a quick rundown. Compare this to a Squier Strat. This is, I think it's a Bullet. It was a markdown. Been working on it little by little. This is going to be my main guitar. Got some used Fender lace sensors. Had a little flaw in the finish there. Still got to change out all the pots. They're the wrong ones. Replaced them with some graphite string holders and some old Schaller black ones that I had. This was a markdown because it had a weird funky nut on it, and I realized the string tuners are not drilled straight, so I'm going to have to plug those and re-drill those and cover them with some maple veneer or something like that. So I might just get another Squier and put those Fender lace sensors on those. But this is one that's for sale. I got this at Kmart a couple years ago when I was first getting back into playing guitar, and didn't realize how common the Squiers were. That shows you how long I've been out of it. But I used to have a Fender Strat Plus. That's why I like the Fender lace sensors. So it's a little bit skinnier width-wise. Doesn't have as much contouring. Looked this morning, the polishing looked fine. I had some preservation polish, it's steel matte polish. It's pretty good. So what I thought was a lot of swirl marks and whatnot was just my perfectionist eye. The whammy bar is a lot thicker, a little bit thicker than a typical Squier bar. This was all bent up when I bought it. Doesn't really go down. I'll go down more than playing in a separate video. Doesn't go down too far. I realized when I took the stuff off was because it's just not routed out. So when I do the playing demo, you see how far it goes down. What else? On the nut, well, you can see some of the fret ends maybe. It's not going to focus. On the original nut, it was too low on the bass side, too high on the high side, which made the strings too loose. They're supposed to be tight on the bass side and a little bit loose on the lead playing side. And so I shimmed the nut with some maple veneer that I had sanded down and sealed with some shellac, and then recut the slots, and then filed down the top a little bit more too. So this is a perfect setup. When you do the setup on the guitar, you put the cap on the first fret and adjust the action and the radius, which is the curvature, to match the curvature of the fingerboard to the curvature on the bridge. Adjusting the action, then you take the capo off and adjust the nut. And probably the biggest difference was just replacing the pots alone. Really made it sound like a Strat. The overall pickup, I did wax pot this. I didn't wax pot these two because when I took off the cover from the other one, there was some wax on the bottom of it, and I don't know really the build quality of these, so I didn't want to risk damaging them. But if these ever die, just replace them with Squier pickups, even though they don't match up, because the price in this guitar range for a beginner, it'd be just fine. But the overwinding gave it a little bit more twang, just a little bit more, and then adding that steel plate underneath it gave it even more twang. What else? Oh yeah, I used, you can use, with the whammy, it helps if you lubricate the slots. Before I redid it, I could stick a pencil in there and put a little bit of Vaseline. When I redid the nut slots, it's a little too skinny to run that in there, so I used some of this guitar grease stuff that StewMac sells. It's basically graphite with some chapstick. That's what the texture is like, chapstick. You can use chapstick, you can use graphite. Graphite powder is really messy. It's like black dust, so you might want to put it into a small container, a little baggie, and then maybe dip like a Q-tip of Vaseline in with it, kind of make like a little paste or something like that. Because this, you buy this in the lock aisle, it's a dry lubricant. You just puff it, and you can also get a regular number 2 pencil, or you can go to the artist's craft supply. This is, I think, a 2B. Autofocusing isn't working. The letter B, I guess, is for black. It's the softer leads, but I think it's like $4 for 2 of them or something like that, or maybe $8 for 2 or something like that. So, but I just happen to have these, so that's why I'm using it. And you can see where I put black marks on each. Took like a Sharpie and marked on each side of the string trees. So when I loose them out one by one, I put the lubricant in there, and I put just a little bit of Vaseline on the string slot in between those two marks to help lubricate them. Okay, so if you are replacing pickups, you want to make sure that they're south, north, south. You test that with a compass, opposites attract. So I'm not holding the guitar up sideways, but that's how you check it. That way your out of phase sounds, it all sounds proper. With the lace sensors over there, they're all south facing, or they're all north. They're all north pickups, because you don't need the hum canceling effect of the reverse winding, the reverse polarity. I'll give you the little tuner that came with the Vinci, just a basic tuner.
Oh, just a couple other things I left out. Neck's about medium. It's not a thin neck, it's not a shredder neck, but it's perfectly fine. If you have normal to short size fingers, it's more comfortable to have a thicker neck, because if it's a thinner neck, at least playing for open chords, whether it's on a cap or not, a thin shredder neck can be really uncomfortable if you have average to small fingers, because more of it's in your palm and your fingers are curling over, and it can get you kind of like an arthritis type discomfort that leads into pain. So this is a nice, it's not a thin shredder neck, but it's a good average size neck for beginners. It's 12-inch radius, which is more of a, usually on Strats nowadays you find a 10 or 12. 12 is more of the shredder thing, so if you are into the shredding style and you're playing up here, it is a little bit more flatter towards that type of style. Another thing about the pots is that, like, if you have a guitar with a humbucking pickup and two singles, a lot of times those Ibanez's with a volume and a tone, is that you're not getting a true single coil sound, because the pots are usually 500s that are matched to the humbucker. So by having this 250 pots on there, it gives it a nice warmer sound than guitars that just have the humbucker and two singles and one tone, one volume. Very minor scratches on it. I think there's one little nick. There's one little bubble. It's pretty high up here, but you can't see it unless you really look for it. A tiny bubble in the finish that popped, and there's a couple scratches right there in the first fret. I didn't make those. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I made them when I did the nut, but those were from the factory. Same thing right in front of the nut. On this part of it, you see a little bit of, I don't know if it's chipping or filing or something like that, but when you make the nut, you cut around it and you knock it out carefully. But those were all in there from the factory job, and a guitar in this price range, that's pretty common. But otherwise, it's in pretty good condition physically.